We tend to picture submarines as these silent, self-contained worlds beneath the waves. But the dramatic truth is, they can and do sink, sometimes in ways that push far beyond their intended operational limits.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which immediately brings a critical question to the surface. What happens to the crew when that, unthinkable event occurs, particularly if the submarine actually becomes pressurized?
It's a scenario that holds a powerful grip on our imagination, doesn't it? The crushing environment, the boundaries of human technology, and the incredible drive for survival in the face of it all.
Right.
For you listening, this isn't just another news story fading into the background. It's like a chance to understand the intricate challenges that define deep-sea survival and the extraordinary measures taken for rescue.
We want to explore the layers of complexity far beneath the headlines.
Exactly.
And to navigate this underwater realm, we're drawing on some authoritative insights. Our main source today is a chapter from the comprehensive textbook, Hyperbaric Medicine Practice, specifically Chapter 42. It's titled Submarine Rescue Diving and Hyperbaric Medicine, authored by Joseph Dituri and Harry T. Whelan. These are individuals with deep expertise in the field, intimately familiar with the pressures of the deep, both technical and human.
Their knowledge is indeed our essential guide here. Our mission in this deep dive is to truly unpack the immense difficulties of rescuing submariners from what's called a DISSUB, a disabled submarine that is under pressure.
Right, the DISSUB.
We'll be examining the absolutely vital role that hyperbaric medicine plays in ensuring their survival. And, in the process, we'll uncover some truly surprising facts and crucial insights into the remarkable technology, the inherent dangers, and the critical medical protocols that define these, high-stakes operations.
Okay, let's get straight to it then. While a submarine facing a critical issue is, thankfully, a rare event.
Very rare, yes.
When it does happen, the odds are stacked against the crew. Their avenues for escape are severely restricted.
Precisely. And that's where the U.S. Navy's Undersea Rescue Command, or URC, steps in. They are the guardians, sort of America's capability to respond to such underwater emergencies.
Okay.
A key asset in their arsenal is the Pressurized Rescue Module, or PRM. This is an impressive piece of engineering capable of reaching depths of up to 2,000 feet of seawater.
2,000 feet, wow.
And what's particularly noteworthy is that it carries internal attendants, and these attendants, they must be qualified divers.
Divers? Why divers specifically?
Because the very submarine they are trying to reach might be pressurized. They need to be able to handle that environment.
Wow, so you have divers going down to potentially pressurized conditions to rescue others who are also under pressure. That's a level of intertwined risk I hadn't fully appreciated.
It really is.
And our source mentioned something about the future of rescue technology, looking back to 2017.
Yes, the chapter discusses a planned transfer under pressure, or TUP, system. The concept was to have 2 large chambers, each capable of holding 32 people.
32? That's a lot.
It is, along with the ability to connect these directly to a rescued submarine. This would allow for the safe transfer and gradual decompression of crew members who had been under high pressure for an extended period, saturated.
So keeping them under pressure initially.
Exactly. Initial testing for this ambitious system was scheduled back in February 2017. It really highlights the ongoing drive to enhance our rescue capabilities.
It certainly does. And the sheer scale of these rescue operations is almost unbelievable. I was struck by the detail that just transporting the PRM to the scene requires at least 2 of those massive C-5 aircraft.
And that's just the PRM itself.
Right.
The entire submarine rescue diving and recompression system, or SRDRS, which includes the PRM and the components for that TUP system we just discussed.
That would require a staggering 5 C-5s to move.
5! Good grief.
It really underscores the immense logistical challenge of mounting a deep-sea submarine rescue. It's huge. So if a submarine encounters a critical issue and ends up on the seabed, what immediate dangers are the crew facing? It's more than just being stranded down there, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Historical analyses of past submarine incidents paint a pretty sobering picture. It ranges from situations where, thankfully, no one was injured, to tragic events with significant loss of life.
A wide spectrum, then.
A very wide spectrum. However, it's highly probable, that any event severe enough to leave a submarine stranded and unable to surface will result in injuries for at least some of the crew.
And what kind of injuries might occur in those initial critical moments?
The immediate injuries typically fall into categories such as trauma could be blunt force or penetrating injuries sustained during the incident itself, thermal injuries, burns,
Right.
problems directly related to being submerged like near drowning, and even pulmonary injuries from the initial event, lung damage.
Okay.
The source also highlights the specific dangers if the crew has to abandon a surfaced submarine, maybe due to very low freeboard or rough seas.
Getting out on the surface.
Yeah. In such cases, exiting through the sail can lead to blunt trauma from impacts with the hull or the sail structure itself. It's perilous.
That sounds incredibly dangerous. And if the crew manages to survive those initial dangers, what longer-term threats do they face inside the DISSUB?
While prolonged survival inside a DISSUB places immense physiological stress on the crew, especially if they're already dealing with injuries, the environment within the submarine can deteriorate rapidly,
How so?
worsening air quality, the risks of both severe cold, hypothermia, and potentially overheating, hyperthermia.
Both extremes.
Both extremes, yes. Plus, extended exposure to elevated pressure and, of course, sheer physical and mental exhaustion.
And combination.
There's also the grim possibility of contamination, yeah. A stark reminder of incidents like the Russian submarine Kursk that adds another layer of danger.
So facing these desperate conditions, the crew might consider escape. But that's a course of action loaded with its own serious risks, correct?
Precisely. It's a real dilemma. The primary hazard during escape is the rapid change in pressure.
Right, coming up too fast.
Exactly. As a crew member ascends from the high pressure of the deep to the much lower pressure at the surface, they undergo a very swift decompression. Even with the best training, the engineering of escape trunks, specialized escape suits, the risks are still very real.
Risks like what specifically?
Barotrauma, that's pressure-related injuries to the ears, sinuses, lungs, and decompression sickness, often called the bends.
The bends, yeah.
Treating these conditions frequently requires hyperbaric chambers. If those aren't immediately available, administering high concentrations of oxygen would be the absolute minimum standard of care needed.
So escape is a high-stakes gamble, which understandably makes rescue the preferred option. But even rescue operations aren't without their own potential complications, are they?
Indeed. While rescue aims to minimize additional risks, particularly if the pressure inside the DISSUB can be maintained during the transfer to the rescue vehicle.
Keeping things stable?
Right. But decompression injuries can still occur if there's a sudden drop in pressure. This could happen either within the rescue vehicle itself during its ascent, or maybe on the support vessel at the surface if something goes wrong.
Okay, so maintaining pressure is key throughout.
Absolutely. And the chapter also points out the potential for hyperthermia, dangerous overheating for those inside the rescue vehicle, especially if it's operating in warmer waters for extended periods.
This issue of pressure seems to be the central challenge in all of this. But our source makes a really interesting point. It's not necessarily the high pressure itself that is the primary danger.
That's a crucial distinction to understand, yeah. Human physiology can actually tolerate remarkably high pressures, well beyond the operational limits of most submarines.
Really? How high?
The text mentions documented tolerances in excess of 2,000 feet of seawater, so the body can handle the pressure itself, generally speaking. The real threat emerges during rapid depressurization after someone has been exposed to high pressure for a significant duration. That leads to the saturation of body tissues with inert gases like nitrogen from the air they breathe.
Okay, let's break that down a bit. So under high pressure, our bodies absorb more nitrogen.
Exactly. Think of it like a bottle of soda.
Yeah?
Under the pressure of the sealed container, more carbon dioxide gas is dissolved in the liquid. When you release that pressure by opening the bottle, the excess gas comes out of solution as bubbles, fizzing.
Right.
The same fundamental principle applies to the inert gases in our bodies when the external pressure is rapidly reduced. The dissolved nitrogen tries to return to a state of equilibrium with the lower external pressure and is released as tiny gas bubbles within our tissues and bloodstream.
And it's these bubbles forming inside the body that cause the real problems, like the bends.
Yes. The body recognizes these gas bubbles as foreign entities and triggers an immune response, sending antibodies and white blood cells to the site.
So inflammation.
Inflammation, yes. And what's particularly fascinating and quite alarming is that the surfaces of these gas bubbles tend to attract other particles circulating in the bloodstream, like fat molecules.
Fat? Really?
Yes. This can lead to the formation of larger, more complex and problematic masses composed of gas, fat, and immune cells traveling through the blood. blockages.
That sounds incredibly serious, a truly dangerous chain reaction. And the chapter also touches on the heightened risks associated with increased oxygen levels within a pressurized environment.
Indeed. As the partial pressure of oxygen inside a pressurized DISSUB rises especially above 5 atmospheres, which is 5 times normal surface air pressure, it can lead to significant respiratory and nervous system effects.
Like what?
These can range from lung irritation and damage to more severe consequences like respiratory failure and even seizures, oxygen toxicity.
Okay.
The text specifically notes that conducting a pressurized rescue from depths exceeding 5 atmospheres is actually beyond the current design capabilities of the TUP system. So there are limits.
So considering all these risks tied to pressure changes, it seems almost inevitable that a disabled submarine would indeed become pressurized. What are the typical ways this pressurization might happen?
The chapter outlines several likely scenarios. The most probable is often a combination of factors. A breach or leak in the submarine's air or oxygen systems could directly increase the internal pressure. Pretty straightforward.
Makes sense.
Additionally, if flooding occurs within a compartment, the incoming water displaces the air, compressing the remaining volume and consequently increasing its pressure, just like squeezing a balloon.
Right. Less space, more pressure.
Exactly. Intentional pressurization by the crew, maybe in an attempt to stop or slow further flooding, is another possibility. Although at typical submarine operating depths, this could create internal pressures that would make rescue with current systems extremely challenging, if not impossible.
A desperate measure with huge implications for rescue. Are there any less obvious ways a submarine might become pressurized in such an emergency?
Yes, the use of emergency breathing systems, where the crew's exhaled air, rich in carbon dioxide, is sometimes vented back into the submarine's atmosphere.
Nice.
That can cause a gradual increase in the overall internal pressure, especially over extended periods with a large crew.
Just from breathing?
Potentially, yes. And while modern submarines have oxygen generation equipment, if that system fails or oxygen stores are depleted, the use of compressed air for breathing needs could also contribute to a rise in internal pressure. Experts in submarine rescue generally agree that a pressurized rescue scenario is a very real possibility that must be planned for.
The chapter then delves into specific historical incidents involving pressurization. Can you share some of those real-world examples? They really highlight the stakes.
Certainly. The 1988 incident involving the Peruvian Navy submarine BAP Pachocha serves as a stark and tragic reminder of these dangers. After a collision at sea, the submarine sank to a depth of 140 feet.
Relatively shallow, but still.
Still very dangerous. The forward torpedo room became pressurized to a depth equivalent of 54 feet of seawater due to flooding and the use of the submarine's air banks to try and manage the situation.
Okay.
When the decision was made to escape after 20 to 24 hours under that pressure, 20 of the sailors developed decompression sickness.
20 of them.
Yes. Tragically resulting in 1 death and 1 severe central nervous system injury, along with other permanent disabilities. This incident directly highlighted the inadequacy of existing rapid decompression protocols at the time. It was a major impetus for research into stage decompression and the development of more robust hyperbaric treatment capabilities.
That's a devastating outcome. Just underscores the critical need for effective pressure management. What about the USS Squalus incident in 1939? That's another well-known submarine disaster.
Yes, when the USS Squalus sank in 242 feet of water, the forward 2 compartments remained structurally intact, but became pressurized to approximately 28 feet of seawater.
Less pressure than the Pachocha.
Less pressure, yes. 32 men were successfully rescued from those compartments using the McCann rescue bell. They subsequently underwent a 40-hour decompression process.
40 hours.
40 hours. While this event also involved a significant loss of life, with 26 men trapped in the flooded aft compartments, the successful rescue of the 32 survivors stands as an early testament to submarine rescue efforts and the complex challenges of managing pressure and decompression, even with relatively shallower pressurization.
These historical examples really drive home the vital importance of having effective decompression strategies in place. And our source discusses the limitations faced in the pre-TUP era. What were the main approaches considered for decompression, and what were the significant hurdles?
Yeah, before TUP was fully conceptualized or available, options were limited. Given the lack of large-capacity recompression chambers that could directly mate with the PRM, several methods were explored, each presenting significant logistical and medical challenges.
Likewise.
One concept was to decompress the rescued crew inside the disabled submarine itself.
Inside the DISSUB.
By slowly venting the pressure using specialized hoses connected by divers in those one-atmosphere diving suits we mentioned earlier.
Ah, the ADS suits.
Right. However, this approach was limited to shallower depths, maybe around 1,000 feet, due to practical constraints like hose length and the critical need to understand and control why it was pressurized in the first place. It was also a potentially very slow and delicate process.
That sounds like a risky proposition, relying on the stability of the damaged submarine and a slow, controlled pressure release. What other options were there?
Decompressing the rescued personnel inside the PRM after transfer was another possibility considered.
Okay, bring them up under pressure, then decompress in the rescue vehicle.
Exactly. While it allowed the rescued crew to remain under pressure during the initial ascent, the PRM just wasn't designed for extended hyperbaric stays. It lacked a pressure-type medical log for transferring waste, food, water, medications, all crucial for preventing DCS and maintaining health during long decompressions.
Practical necessities.
Absolutely. Plus, the cramped conditions and limited atmosphere control within the PRM also made prolonged decompression impractical. It was generally considered feasible only for very short rescue missions, like less than 4 hours total.
So neither of those options seems ideal for a prolonged, pressurized rescue scenario. What about the approach of surface decompression, bringing them straight up?
Surface decompression, or SURD, involved the idea of having the rescued crew breathe high concentrations of oxygen inside the PRM during its ascent.
Pre-breathing oxygen.
Right. The theory was that this would help flush nitrogen from their tissues, thereby reducing the risk of decompression sickness during a rapid decompression once they reach the surface. This would be followed by an immediate transfer, ideally within 10 minutes, to available surface recompression chambers for proper treatment.
But that sounds risky too.
It carried a substantial risk of DCS if not executed flawlessly, and it required complex, time-sensitive logistics, having enough recompression chambers ready on the surface vessel, and a very rapid transfer of potentially injured and non-ambulatory survivors. A lot had to go right.
It sounds like they were constantly up against the clock, with the likely decompression times often exceeding the practical turnaround time for the PRM to conduct another rescue sortie.
Exactly. This potential bottleneck, the backlog issue, where you need to decompress rescued personnel for potentially days while the PRM could maybe do another run in hours, that was a major concern. It clearly highlighted the urgent need for more advanced solutions like the transfer under pressure system.
Beyond the PRM, what other specialized assets does the Undersea Rescue Command have available for these incredibly challenging deep-sea situations?
In addition to the PRM, the URC maintains 2 older but still vital submarine rescue chambers, or SRCs.
Okay, SRCs.
These are capable of reaching depths of 850 feet and can transport 6 rescuees at a time. A significant advantage of the SRCs is their high degree of portability. They can be deployed rapidly to different locations, maybe flown somewhere needed.
More mobile.
More mobile, yes. It's also worth noting that the Deep Submergence Rescue Vehicle, the DSRV Mystic, which people might remember, that was retired back in 2008, the PRM offers enhanced capabilities.
I recall hearing about those remarkable deep diving suits earlier.
Yeah.
Do they also play a role in these complex rescue operations?
Absolutely. The URC possesses 4 incredibly capable one-atmosphere diving suits, or ADS, designed to operate at depths of up to 2,000 feet of seawater.
2,000 feet again, same as the PRM limit.
Same depth capability. And these are not standard diving suits. They were custom engineered to provide a high degree of dexterity for the diver inside. The occupant remains at normal surface pressure, breathing a carefully controlled oxygen supply.
So no decompression needed for the diver.
Correct. While sophisticated manipulators allow them to perform intervention tasks for up to 6 hours, these suits are invaluable for tasks like surveying the disabled submarine, clearing debris from hatches, and connecting critical equipment like downhaul cables for the SRC or PRM.
It's astounding to think of someone working at that extreme depth in what is essentially a personal submersible. A walking submersible.
Pretty much, yeah.
What about rescue or intervention at shallower depths? Is there anything for that?
For shallower depths, say up to 190 feet, the URC also utilizes a more traditional surface-supplied Mk3 diving system, standard hard hat diving, basically.
Okay.
And for both treatment of diving-related injuries and for training purposes, they maintain a transportable recompression chamber system, the TRCS. This also serves as a mobile transfer lock for the newer TUP system. So they have a comprehensive suite of tools and technologies tailored for various aspects of undersea intervention and rescue.
So looking towards the future, What insights does our source material offer about the ongoing advancements in submarine rescue capabilities? Are we getting better at this?
Well, the chapter frankly acknowledges that despite all the technological progress, the vast majority of the ocean's depths remain beyond our current rescue capabilities. That 2,000-foot limit leaves a lot of ocean floor inaccessible for rescue.
A sobering reality check.
It is. However, the fundamental commitment to rescuing submariners in distress remains unwavering. The ongoing testing, rigorous evaluation, and extensive training for the transfer under pressure, or TUP, system represent the U.S. Navy's most significant recent step forward in this critical area.
So TUP is the big focus now.
It seems to be. And the sheer scale of a full-scale TUP operation is noteworthy. The text indicates that safely decompressing around 155 people, like a full submarine crew from a pressurized DISSUB, could potentially take over 100 hours.
Over 100 hours, 4 days or more.
Yeah. And involve a team of approximately 95 personnel dedicated just to the rescue, decompression, medical treatment, and overall command and control aspects. It's a massive undertaking.
That long decompression time really highlights the immense physiological challenges involved in returning someone safely from such extreme pressures.
It certainly does. The chapter also points to the ongoing research efforts aimed at finding ways to safely reduce these lengthy decompression times, speeding things up without increasing risk.
Makes sense.
And importantly, it emphasizes that submarine rescue is not solely a national concern, but a deeply collaborative international effort. Most nations that operate submarines have established networks to support each other in the event of a catastrophic underwater incident.
That's good to hear. International cooperation is key.
Absolutely vital in these scenarios.
Now, the chapter also includes a detailed appendix that delves even further into the specific medical considerations during a DISSUB incident. What are some of the key insights from that section? It sounds like a plan within the plan.
It really is. The appendix provides a very comprehensive concept of operations, a COAN OPS, for the delivery of medical services during a submarine rescue event. Its primary goal is to clearly define the roles and responsibilities of various medical personnel, assign specific tasks, and provide detailed guidance.
All aimed at saving lives.
Exactly. To ensure the most effective healthcare delivery possible, ultimately to save lives and minimize the long-term effects of any injuries sustained. It revisits the anticipated medical conditions we discussed, earlier injuries from the event, surface abandonment risks, survival stresses, escape dangers, rescue issues.
Right, all those categories.
But now frames them within a formal, structured medical response framework. A checklist, almost.
So it's all about having a clear and well-rehearsed plan for how medical teams will operate in such a complex emergency, knowing who does what, when?
Exactly. It introduces the DISSUB Medical Response Team, or DMRT, and the DISSUB Medical Treatment Team, or DMTT. It clearly outlines their respective roles and how they integrate into the overall rescue operation.
Okay.
The appendix also details the process for activating advisory panels of medical and technical experts who can provide crucial guidance on the specific conditions inside the DISSUB and on the complex decompression procedures needed.
Getting expert advice on the fly.
Essential. The concept of surge medical assets, the ability to rapidly mobilize additional medical personnel and equipment if the initial DMRT proves insufficient to handle the scale of the situation, is also thoroughly outlined. Planning for the worst case.
It sounds like an incredibly layered and meticulously coordinated approach, anticipating a wide range of potential medical needs. Were there any specific limitations or particular challenges that the appendix specifically highlights?
Yes, the appendix does point out several critical limitations and potential challenges. Things like the inherent uncertainty of the DISSUB's precise location, the possibility of incomplete or inaccurate initial information.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Pretty much. Also, the significant impact of adverse weather conditions on rescue operations, the potential necessity for decontamination procedures if there was, say, a fire or a chemical leak.
Right, contamination adds another layer.
Huge layer. Also, the limited medical resources typically found on the initial surface support vessels, the fact that, as mentioned, there's currently no direct TUP capability within existing U.S. rescue assets requiring transfers, and the potential unavailability of sufficient hyperbaric chambers in the immediate vicinity.
So lots of potential roadblocks.
Many potential issues to overcome. The appendix also meticulously details the specific responsibilities of various key medical personnel, from the fleet surgeon overseeing things, down to the senior medical officer of the DMTT actually treating patients.
And what about the actual stages or phases of the medical response itself? How is that structured? Is it step by step?
It is. The appendix breaks down the overall medical response into 5 distinct and sequential phases. First is the initial notification of the incident.
Get a word.
Then the crucial preparation phase, where resources are mobilized, teams assembled. Third is the deployment of medical teams and equipment to the scene. Fourth is rendezvous operations. This is where they're actually treating survivors, whether from an escape or directly from a rescue vehicle.
The hands-on part.
Right. And finally, the redeployment phase, getting all medical assets back once the immediate crisis has been addressed.
A full cycle.
A full cycle. It also clearly defines the standard triage categories: red for critical, yellow for serious but stable, green for minor injuries, and black for deceased, used to prioritize medical care.
Standard emergency triage.
Exactly. And similarly, it outlines specific decompression treatment categories, C1, C2, and C3, based on the individual's need for hyperbaric oxygen therapy, how severe their DCS is or might be.
Okay.
The appendix also addresses initial considerations for managing recompression therapy protocols and the fundamental principles for treating casualties who may have been exposed to contamination or even radiation. It tries to cover all bases.
It's truly astonishing the level of detail and meticulous planning that goes into preparing for such a complex and thankfully infrequent event.
It absolutely is. The appendix really underscores the critical necessity of having a well-defined and rigorously practiced medical response plan to maximize the chances of survival and to minimize the potential for long-term health consequences for anyone rescued from a distressed submarine.
Well, this deep dive has certainly illuminated the incredibly intricate challenges involved in rescuing submariners from a pressurized disabled submarine, and the absolutely indispensable role of hyperbaric medicine in these high-stakes operations. What are some of the most surprising or critical insights that really stand out to you from our discussion?
For me, one of the most striking takeaways is that incredibly delicate balance: the life-sustaining high-pressure environment within a DISSUB on one hand, and the potentially lethal consequences of rapid depressurization on the other.
That fine line.
Such a fine line. A thorough understanding of the complex physiological effects of pressure and the intricate procedures for safe decompression is just absolutely paramount. And the sheer scale and level of coordination required for the medical response, as detailed in that appendix, is truly impressive. It speaks volumes about the dedication of everyone involved in this field.
I completely agree. It really makes you appreciate the incredible feats of engineering, the PRM, the ADS suits, and the seamless medical coordination that must come together in these incredibly high-pressure situations, both literally and figuratively. And the fact that this is a constantly evolving field, driven by ongoing research and technological innovation like the TUP system, is truly significant. They're always trying to get better.
It definitely prompts a really important question, I think, for you, the listener, to consider as our exploration and, frankly, utilization of the deep ocean continue to expand. What novel challenges might we encounter in the future?
Good question.
And what further groundbreaking innovations might we see in the technologies and medical protocols for undersea rescue and hyperbaric medicine? Where does it go next?
That's a fascinating and thought-provoking question to sit with. If you'd like to explore this topic further, you might find delving into the history of significant submarine disasters, or perhaps to the ongoing advancements in diving technology, to be particularly insightful areas to investigate.
Lots more to learn.
Definitely. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.